Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Survivor 43, episode 11. That's right, I'm your host, Chris, and I'm very pleased to welcome a friend of the podcast today to the channel, someone that I thought have already been on the channel, but we just realized, Coach Drew, this is your debut appearance here on the Nullified Take. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me. I was actually surprised that I hadn't been on before, just because we had talked about last season over in mine. But yeah, I'm glad to finally be a co-host on here and a guest.
Yeah, well, we're very happy to have you here. Also, welcome Jake, my fellow co-host for Survivor 43. Jake, how you doing?
Doing good. Just dealing with some finals for university, so it's getting a little crazy, but I will be done soon. Thank the Lord.
Yeah, we're nearly there. It's like the final stretch of the year now before we get to have a bit of an end of year break. Do you guys get like a proper break in the US towards the end of the year? Do you get like a couple of weeks off work at least? Because I know the stigma, the stereotype for the rest of the world is that Americans don't get any leave. I don't know if you're aware of that.
So we get Christmas Eve and Christmas. Pretty much every job gives those days off, but other than that, no.
I work at a university, so I get 3 weeks off.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. If you work for a university, I think then you get proper breaks. It's the same over here as well. But then I always find it funny because I've got friends, Drew, who they are lecturers at universities and they still complain that they don't get enough leave.
I'll take my 3 weeks every year. I'll take my 3 weeks and call it a day.
Yeah.
Also, welcome here to the live stream, J.E. saying that he is excited by this one. Coach is here, the sane one, not the survivor one. So the one that's got all the hot takes, he is here today with us. And also is Christian Gal saying, hey, dudes, he says the gameplay is average with the cast, just saying. We'll talk about that. It's a bit of a hot take to start off there, Coach Drew. What has been your biggest hot take so far, you reckon, this season? What has sort of landed maybe like a lead balloon in the community when you said this is your hot take for the season?
I don't know if it's a necessarily hot take, but I mean, I'm on these Reddits and the Twitter and all of that, and people like to talk very horribly about the season. One person even said it was the worst season ever, which obviously is just not true. Because Island of the Idols exists. But I will say that, the cast is pretty good. I've enjoyed a lot of the characters that we've had this season. Yeah, the gameplay might not be what the fans want, but the characters that we're getting, I feel like, make up for some of the lack in gameplay. I consider this to be more of an old school type season. Which is all right. We can get those every now and then. The fact that we have an old school type season with all of these advantages is kind of insane. So yeah, my hot take, I guess, would be I don't hate the season and I actually really enjoy the cast.
Well, over here, that's a take that myself and Jake agrees with. Like we're both
here.
Yeah, we both have been enjoying the season, and I think that a lot of this, Jake, comments about the cast not being good and maybe overplaying. And maybe not reading things correctly. I've been critical at times as well of the cast, I think, of some of the game moves that have been made. But wouldn't you agree, Jake? A lot of this, and I know we sound like a broken record, is down to the fact that we just continue to throw so many game-breaking mechanics into the game, which doesn't allow people to organically play the game anymore.
Yeah, it's just the game can get broken by these things, and I feel like the cast sometimes overthinks about but what if this happens next round? I gotta make sure that I've got everything in order, and just in case. And it's like, let's chill, let's keep it, let's keep it simple. And also, even if the gameplay isn't that great, that isn't very indicative of a great season necessarily. Like some of the best seasons have
that's a very fair point.
Pretty
it's the characters
gameplay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Wade wasn't necessarily a mastermind strategist. He came back to play in South Pacific and he was a lot better. But we fell in love with him when he was the crazy man doing all the crazy stuff out there. And similar to this season, we've had a very big character, maybe a larger than life character, and Gabler play this season. Coach Drew, what has your thoughts been on the Gabler of it all? You know, where he started, the evolution of Gabler to where he is now. What are you high on this guy or not? Where are you sitting on him?
So at the beginning of the season, I didn't think Gabler had any chance in hell of doing anything this season. And then as the seasons progressed, I'm like, okay, that's a wholesome moment by Gabler. There's this, and in the back of my head, I'm like, it's going to end up going to Jonathan from 42 territory of there's going to be a moment where I just kind of snap and just don't like him anymore. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. But right now, I think that out of the six, I think he's my least favorite. But I still think that he's a fun character. I'm fairly certain that he's going to sit at the end and get no votes because no one is saying his name, but not because he has good relationships with them. I think it's just because they don't care about voting him out.
It's funny because Jesse and Gabler are the only two people who've not had votes against them as of yet in this game. And that just blows my mind. Jesse has been the player of the season, right? He is clearly the one that's pulling the strings, or the editor's definitely showing us his game more than anyone else's. And then Gabler, on the other hand, the crazy guy in the beginning, the one that nobody thought was going to make it into the merge. Myself and Jake at one point thought he was going to get medevac. He didn't want to play his idol in the first game. He wanted to play a shot in the dark. Like, there was a lot of craziness happening from Gabler, and now he is one of the most sane people, and it's setting up, the storyline is being set up as we progress through the season as the Gabler versus Jesse show. At some point you're going to say who's going to take a shot at who, but it's getting a little bit late now for him, Jake, because by the end of this episode, like Coach Drew said, there's 6 people left in the game. There's 3 idols still left in the game. So, I don't know how Gabler's going to pull this off.
Yeah, and as far as we know, correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse still has Cody's idol. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Cody's just like given up or forgotten about this idol because if it's Jesse's now, I guess he can just play both at final 1 at final 6, 1 at final 5. So the window's closing definitely. No one has any idea that Jesse has this idol that Dwight gave him from Janine. Like, crazy, still craziness that happened. I know last week I was saying I was super high on Gabler because of the edit, and I still kind of feel that way, but also, like, when you think about it from a gameplay standpoint, it is starting to feel less and less probable because I just don't.
So.
I'm starting to think about the maneuvers, and I'm just not exactly sure what he could do.
Yeah. MJ Lancer, welcome to the live, saying finally caught one of these lives. We've been moving times around quite a bit depending on who we're talking to. So glad that we could be live at a time that you could be here. But we also appreciate everybody that listens to this afterwards on any of the audio platforms or watches the videos at a later stage. Please consider liking and subscribing as well when you see this, because it does help with the YouTube algorithms. Jay says here, hot take, if Gabler wins this season, it becomes the greatest newbie season ever. Now, for me personally, it will always be Kage-yan. I don't think that Gabler winning here would, for me, beat Kage-yan. But I will say that it would be definitely a memorable season, Coach Drew. And we spoke about that last week because, a big problem with some of these newer seasons now, I feel like, is that it's harder to remember the people who are playing it. It's harder to remember the seasons because it's also now just generic 41, 42, 43. So, 15 seasons from now, how do we remember 43 if Gabler doesn't win?
Yeah, and it sucks because, like I said earlier, I feel like all 41 through 43 have had memorable characters and they've had memorable moments, but because they're just given such a horrible title, people shouldn't put stock into the titles, but we do. When we think Gabon, we think, Dr. Bob, we think Sugar. When you say 41, it's like, all right, which one was that? And you were like, once you start to remember, like, oh yeah, that's the one with Xander and Shan and all that. It's like, okay, that makes sense, but it's unfortunate. And I will say that, when I did 42 over the summer, I started to realize that as I hit the 40s of once I hit 41, it's like, yeah, I don't feel like any of these characters are memorable outside of their season. I don't. I only want to see them play with other people from the 40s. I don't want to really see them play with anyone from like 37, 36. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I also think it's because currently it is kind of a little bit, and it saddens me to say this because I don't want to be on that train of people that keep saying that it's a watered down version of Survivor compared to what it used to be, but it is. It's less days. It's, it just feels like Jeff is going through the motions in Tribal Council these days as well. He's not really asking hard hitting questions. He's not really getting the best out of them. And for me, Coach, the tribal councils have become really boring. Like, it's not live tribal councils right now. And I'm saying this, I'm still enjoying the season. I'm still enjoying Survivor, and I'll always watch Survivor. But tribal councils have become a bit of a snooze fest. It's like the least interesting part of the game right now.
Yeah, I watched it at a bar this past weekend, and I had to watch it with subtitles because it was very loud in there. And I kind of just zoned out until I saw them get up to start voting because I knew that nothing was going to matter that was being said there. Now it turns out there was a few things that happened that I had to go back and watch. Say, okay, that's cool. But in the end, the most important tribal moment this season that has happened, while sitting there is Ellie not getting the idol, right? Like,
yeah,
and that didn't happen on camera. So.
Yeah, it has not been memorable from a tribal council standpoint, and it's quite ironic because with so much advantages, with the knowledge is power, with all these different things that are now coming into play, you would think that these tribal councils would be a lot more live. You would think that a lot more happened. We will talk about this episode specifically because I think Sammy tried with the knowledge of his power a little bit, and he tried to, make lemonade out of lemons or whatever that saying is. He tried to do something with nothing in this episode. But let's get into the episode a little bit here. It started off pretty rough for Sammy because, up until last week, I thought maybe a week or two ago, I was like, Sammy still has a chance. And then suddenly it just started going bang down. And he was playing a dangerous game. Myself and Jake talked about the fact that he's been playing the middle ground, and it's either going to work out beautifully for him, or as soon as somebody sees it, they're going to cut the head off the snake because, you can't have a player like this who is dangerous, who can flip-flop back and forth, still in the game. And in this one, he called it wrong. He thought Noel was going to, stay in the game, and he ended up voting for Carla, and he has to do damage control, Coach. What did you think of the scene with everybody getting back into camp and them calling Sammy out, and how he handled it as a whole?
Well, I mean, I know that everyone is now saying, "Oh, yeah, he was very clearly 19 in this episode because of the way, especially his vote out confessional." I feel like he handled it as best he could in the situation. He didn't try to attack anyone. He even tried to throw someone under the bus when I think it's him and Carla laying there. And he's asking who was the first person to do it. And he's like, not me. It was, who did he say?
Cassidy.
And they linger on them looking at each other for a bit there, which I thought was a fun little production thing. But one of many in this episode. I knew it was pretty much game over for Sammy at that, just based off of how this season's been going, where if they show someone being like, it might be done for them, that's usually the person that goes home this season in the episode. They don't really try to throw you off too much. It's just like, okay, yeah, this person's bottom. Yeah, okay. So Sammy, I actually thought they were trying to set us up for him to actually successfully play a shot in the dark.
Same.
And so when they showed not safe, I'm like, wow, they really built that up for it to
and also because his edit this season has been one of the biggest edits as well. Like, they've constantly gone back to him. He's constantly been shown, like, we've seen his strategy where the show hardly ever gives players this level of respect and showing their gameplay when they're not the winner of the season. You know what I mean? So I kind of felt like it was setting up to be a big move, but obviously it didn't happen at the end of this. But Jake, what did you think of, Sammy trying to divert the attention to Cassidy here? And do you think that this could still mean the end of Cassidy in the future? Because it does look like by the end of this episode, Carla does not fully trust Cassidy. So something did stick in her head.
I think that Sammy kind of, obviously he's got to do something because he knew he was about to be dead in the water. But I think he almost got lucky because he had no idea that, Carla told Cassidy about her idol. So I think he just got kind of lucky that there was a weird little, itch in Carla's head that he happened to like kind of irritate by bringing up Cassidy's name, and that almost resulted in him being saved. But I just really respect that. Like he even saw the writing on the wall at Tribal Council and was like, I'm not done yet. Like, let me, I'm playing my shot in the dark. He even announced it, which pissed people off, as we'll talk about. But he
Let's talk
talked.
about it now since it's up. Like, since it's
Yeah,
up, we'll talk about it. That we don't have to wait until the
thought
end
till
of the
the
episode.
end.
But
Yeah.
he plays knowledge is power, or he tells everybody he's going to play it in advance. And people are like, why are you doing it? It's disappointing. But he holds Carla to that, and he says, why is it disappointing? Like, why? Like, if you're truly with me, my vote should not matter in this way. Coach, what did you think of this gameplay by Sammy? Are you for it, against it? It looked like the jury was really loving what he was doing.
Yeah, I was all for Sammy doing it because he was aware enough to know that things that were probably not going to go my way tonight. And I like the way that he handled when people were starting to say, oh, well, basically trying to guilt trip him into not doing it. It's like, well, sorry, guys. One, I know my name's on the block. But two, like he said earlier, if you guys are really with me, like you've been saying, then this shouldn't matter. And it's more, and I'm not going to knock the people for getting upset because they're also trying to manipulate the kid. And I'm glad that he was able to stick to his guns and to say, you know what, even if y'all are with me, I'm going to do this now, and I'll just deal with it when we get back to camp. Which he has shown he can, for a 19-year-old kid, can deal with a lot of that fallout. So I think he was thinking, well, if it does go my way, yes, these people are going to be pissed off, but screw them. Let's get back, and then we'll go from there. Because now the deck is reshuffled again, and I might not even be the target next time.
Yeah, he probably thought, Survivor is like the high tide and the low tide. You can never predict, when the high tide's going to come and the low tide is going to go, right, Jake? It's always in flux.
Jeff, that is Jeff bringing up that analogy at Tribal. Like, I'm sorry, isn't the whole point of tides that they are predictable, that they know what the tides are going to be? Why it seems like it's a theme this season that he has to find some analogy, which has always kind of been a thing in recent seasons, but specifically this one. Like you said earlier, he's just not asking hard-hitting questions. And this is like the first Tribal where, like, when Sammy's talking about the shot in the dark, it's like the first time something memorable has happened in a long time. Me and my dad watch together every week, and we almost skipped Tribal because we both talked about how, like, nothing ever happens. They just talk about some analogy, and everyone gets their turn of like bringing their.
But don't you find it funny though, Jake, that as soon as he brings up the analogy, like, all the cast have to be like, they all have to talk about it. They all have to make sure they keep Jeff happy.
Yes.
They got to talk about the high and the low tide, put it back into their game. I just find it hilarious. By now it's just funny for me to watch. And, like, listen, Jeff is trying, Coach. What's happened here with Jeff? What has happened with this guy? Like, he used to be, and I still think he is one of the best hosts ever. I mean, you've got to respect the fact he's got into 43 seasons. But I feel like he's going in a different direction, and I don't know if it was broken.
Yeah. While I was doing 42 and 42, I basically broke it down, like the Jeff character as it changes. So, like, the first few seasons, he's very much just Jeff. He's just the guy that's there, and then it becomes Jeff, the kind of annoying host that just says outlandish stuff because I'm untouchable. I'm Jeff. Courtney, why are you anorexic? It's like, all right, dude, relax. Then we get into the next phase of Jeff where, he's antagonizing people during tribals and, asking questions that really don't matter and is trying to, lead things a certain way. And now we are in the Jeff is a meme and knows that he's a meme phase of his career where Jeff reads the internet. He absolutely does. And he sees what people have been saying about him, especially during lockdown.
Yeah.
Everyone's rewatching Survivor and they're all tweeting about him. He's going to go back and he's going to try to change it. It's almost like he's trying to pander to everyone so that everyone loves him. And the easiest way to do that is by just becoming the meme, the Jeff meme. And so this is the Jeff meme era. And depends on the episode for me, whether I like it or not.
Listen, Jeff's Jeff. I'm always going to like Jeff. I'm a little bit worried about the fact that he seems to sometimes not have a personality anymore. And I think you kind of hit it on the head of the fact that, like stand for something, Jeff. Stand for something. You can't please everyone. You're going to piss someone off down the line. And I think that we live in a society now where people are so afraid of, pissing each other off. And it's okay. Like, listen, I've got family members I don't always agree with on everything. And it's okay. They're still family members. I might only see them once every now and again, but, I guess he needs to hold people accountable a little bit more instead of going down this track. But I do want to read a couple of the comments. There's a few interesting comments that's come in since we've spoken about the episode. Jay here says, Cody still knows about the knowledge is power, or still believes the knowledge of power could potentially be a thing. That's why he's not given it back to Jesse. And you never know who's got what in the game. He also says that he's worried about the future of the show because this past episode and the episode before was the lowest rated episodes ever. I continue to see that being a thing online where people talk about that. And yes, it is worrying, right? It is worrying. But one thing I wish that they would put out there as well, and I've said this a few times, is how many people are watching it afterwards? I watch it afterwards on Paramount Plus. You know what I mean? So I think that we're seeing a new age of supporters and people who are following the show that just don't watch it live anymore because we've gotten used to Netflix. We've gotten used to streaming shows on demand. Like the whole culture has changed now where you maybe have something to do at 7:30 p.m. I don't know when it plays over in the States, but you might have something to do at that time. You're out playing squash or you're socializing. So you come back afterwards and you then watch the show, right, Coach? So I don't know if I could take to the bank just the live viewership numbers. I think that they take everything into account and look at people who stream it afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not Survivor Australia where 40 plus million people are watching the show. That's not going to happen with any show that's on now. Shows don't have that many people watching them now because, like you said, the streaming, the art of streaming has changed things so that people don't watch things live unless you have to watch them like sports. And even then, people still go back and watch sports after the fact. So I try not to put much stock into who's watching it live and the numbers. Also, Survivor's been around long enough where I feel like they have all, ironically, immunity. I feel like they are immune from, now we got to cancel Survivor now after 44 seasons. I think that when Survivor goes off, it's going to be on their own terms.
I just think that the show costs less to make now than ever before.
Especially now it's 26 days.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up Christian Gale saying, it needs to go back to 39 days. I still believe that as well. But one of the things I've realized, Drew, because I was very hard on that, right? Season 41, 42, I was like, how dare they go to 26 days? We got to see 39 days. And what I've realized is by the third season, I'm softening on it a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? It's still Survivor. But the one thing that I don't like is the fact that because we've gone to 26 days, we need to go out of our way to starve these people now, speed everything up, throw a lot of advantages in there. Because my thinking is give them enough food to be entertaining. Like, I don't want them to be eating luxuriously. I don't want them to gain weight while they're out there. But what's wrong with having enough rice just so they can think of strategy or be a bit more animated at tribal council? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that also adds to the fact that we kind of see these people just withering away. And Jeff, in this episode, admitted that some of the old school stuff is better. I mean, he brought a challenge back in the immunity challenge, and he said, well, we're throwing it back to old school, back when things were tougher, when it was more tough, And I'm like, didn't you say this was the most difficult version of Survivor?
Yes.
You're contradicting yourself, right, Coach?
Yep. We're going to bring it back to when we used to try to kill you guys, and then in that same breath, you guys have been out here long enough. We're gonna call it there. It's like, what? You can't say you're gonna bring this back to try to kill you, quotations. And then immediately call it for time, because it's getting too dark or because of the tide. Okay, the tide went away. Sorry, just let them sit there. Someone's eventually going to come up. It might take 6 to 7 hours afterwards, but someone's going to eventually come up. Now, I understand you have to speed it up because of tribal and everything, but it's good TV. Watching two people breathe through a little gate is actually good TV. I got my friends at the bar to watch that. They had no idea what was going on. It was just fun.
Yeah. And they're like, this is insane. What are they doing to these people? They're torturing them. But Jake, do you reckon that, Carla and Owen has now broken this game and we won't see this coming back in the future? Because this is insane. This is unprecedented. I mean, for someone like myself who watch International Survivor and the US Survivor. I've seen this also in Australian Survivor. I've seen this also in Survivor South Africa. There has been times, especially in Survivor South Africa, where I legitimately thought someone was going to drown. And for them to actually get through this, to ride out the whole high tide and going back down to low tide, and for this game to be broken, basically, I feel like we don't see this challenge again because they didn't have a tiebreaker in mind. They were not supposed to break this.
I think that you kind of mentioned it right there. I think if they were to do it again, they're going to find some sort of tiebreaker, some sort of follow-up afterwards, or what they can do is they can just bring the bar even lower, and so they can basically guarantee that somebody's going to, there's only going to be one person at the end of this, because I think that maybe they underestimated, or I guess overestimated the tide. I guess it didn't go as high as they thought it was or something. They didn't get the length quite right. I'm not sure, but still just crazy from Owen and Carla to do that.
Absolute insanity.
Yeah,
I've got so much respect for them. So much respect, coach. Yes, frustrated to see that they pull this thing and they don't get a winner, because I know that Americans are very similar to myself. We don't like draws. We like to see someone win. And this was a draw, and that's why football in America, I don't think, is as big, or soccer in other places, as in other countries, because we're frustrated with 0-0 games or 1-1 games, right? But yeah, again, like I said, massive credit should go to them, because they stayed down there for a very, very long time. And I think there must have been a fear of hypothermia or something like that taking place with them being in the water as long as they were, because the tide going down, I think what Jeff and why he called it was, the challenge is holding your breath. It's not just staying underneath this bar and holding on. And there was no danger of them, going or submerging under the water with the low tide coming in. So I don't know how long it would have taken. The next high tide might have only been the next day. So, how long would you have them out there? So I understand it sucks to pull the game, but hats off to both of those players for winning. Yeah. So, for me, looking at it, it was an interesting challenge. I think they have to bring a tiebreaker in if they do bring it back in the future. But how about Cody? And, the whole thing about getting the message, going out, finding this advantage, running around in camp, and then the advantage for once, we've been saying it for a very, very long time, they make it too easy for people to find advantages these days. They finally listened to the online community, and they put it in this, satchel or this little pouch that looks like the tree, and everybody kept walking past it. How golden was it to see Sammy needing an advantage, standing right next to it? His face is right next to the tree. It's right next to him, but no one can see this. Did you find this entertaining, Coach, seeing them? Because normally it can be a little bit boring seeing people run off and going for advantages. But how did you feel about this advantage, and how did you feel about the way that it was hidden this time?
Well, at first I thought, okay, it's not going to be the first person, and I'm going to be annoyed that it wasn't the first person. It's going to be the second person. Then the second person doesn't find it, and then it becomes fun, because then it's like a guessing game of who's going to actually find it. And that scene goes on for a bit, and it just keeps, this is it. They're finally going to find it, and they'll turn and walk the other direction. It's like, wow, okay, no one's actually finding this thing. And I was watching with friends, and they kept saying, well, aren't the cameramen? I'm like, the cameramen are there to mess with you. They have many camera people there. They're filming in all different directions. You can't pay attention to a random shot that they have. So when it did end up being Cody that finds it, I'm like, well, he's going to clearly get caught then, right? Because yeah. And then he doesn't. And to top it all off, picks the right person. And this season where there is no real challenge beast, he guesses Owen. And, I thought that was move of the episode, even though that was just guesswork. It was just guessing. Yeah.
It shows you how well he knows the people, because it basically gave him a little bit of a clue to say who would deal while under pressure, who would deal while being in this. I think he knew exactly what the challenge was going into it. So he had to think about that. And then he was like, okay, well, Owen seems to be someone that's good under pressure, which to me was shocking, Jake, because whenever we see Owen on our screens, he's always frustrated about not getting his way and not being in power, right? He seems like this kid that's well, I'm not going to win. Even when Gabler comes to him and says, I still got a plan to get us to the top 3, he's like, well, you can take me there, I'm not going to win. And he feels really frustrated about the fact nothing is going his way. But clearly when it comes to the challenges, there must be a calmness that comes over him or something, and Cody read that.
Yeah, I think that also maybe Cody saw, well, we targeted him before, and he pulled out a clutch immunity. Forget which episode. I think that was when Janine got voted out. He had immunity, and so maybe he thought, oh, this is the same type of situation. He once again voted incorrectly, and he's just super frustrated. So he's going to go all out to try to keep himself safe. But yeah, and I liked that they told him what the challenge was, because I was like, this is completely useless if they don't. So I was happy to see that. Not knowing what it is, it could be anything. It could just be a puzzle. It could just be like who can hold like weight on their back. Obviously that's going to vary. So I was glad that they told him about it. Yeah, and he got lucky that it ended in a draw, because might not have.
Yeah, I mean, listen, hats off to Carla. Going into that, I did not expect Carla to be one of the 2 people winning that challenge. So she did an extremely good job, and it shows you how much heart she has for the show and how badly she wants to win this thing. So I was really impressed. Kahuna TV here in the live. He is my co-host for the Challenge Australia content. Says, I'm not up to date, so I won't hang around and be spoiled, but just dropped in to say hello. Kahuna, hello. Hope you're doing well on this Sunday morning over there in Australia. Jay here says, apparently they were only able to do this challenge because they had access to a certain area in the Fijian Ocean that has perfect conditions for the challenge. Makes sense, because they haven't been doing it for a while, so maybe previously they haven't had that access to do it. Jay also says, this is a good replacement for Do or Die, ? And I do think they should do it at the final 11, since the final 11 in the new era has been a boring boot episode that reinforces the majority. And I mean, the more people you have, also, I think, in left in the game, it sort of nullifies the power of this advantage if the extra person gets immunity, because there's still more options left. Because we ran a real big risk at the end of this, coach, of having another Sari type of moment happening with advantage again, because we had 3 advantages or 3 immunity idols. We had the shot in the dark being played from Sammy, which could have made a 4th person immune, and we had Cody also immune at this stage, plus the 2 people that won the immunity. So I mean, that's like 7 possibilities right there of outcomes that could have happened, right? And
yeah, they don't have a fail safe for that, because if all 7 people are immune, you can't do anything. They can't go to fire, because that's not fair to the people that are immune. So they really lucked out in this episode with that.
Honestly,
double elimination. The next tribal council, you say, okay, well, everybody goes home, but next time, just know you're going to be voting 2 people out.
Yeah, or they have like some sort of impromptu immunity challenge right there at tribal council. Like, they've done that a few times. Like, sometimes they'll do a double elimination. They'll vote someone out, and then immediately Jeff is like, okay, you're about to do another challenge. And it's like some trivia thing. Maybe it would be that, but even then, like, we shouldn't need that. We should just be having things be as simple as possible. So.
One of the things I'm really missing at the moment, and I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I miss a very simple immunity challenge where people have to guess who's the most likely person to be associated with a certain question. Like, for instance, who's the biggest goat left in the game? And people write down Gabler, and he gets pissed off because of that. Like, it just evokes emotion. It gives people an idea of where they sit in the pecking order. And at the moment, I feel like they're all these frogs in a very hot pot of cooking water, and they don't realize that they're being cooked right now. Unless you're Jesse or Cody, who's clearly the Stephen Fishback and JT of the season at this point, unless they do get sniped before the end. It's looking, or even you could say the Dom and Wendell. It's another great duo. They're in power right now, coach. I mean, what should we see changed here for people to finally see that Jesse and Cody is sort of running it? Because it looks like Gable is the only person who's onto it.
Yeah, and we'll go back to your first point about how they should bring back, they call it touchy subjects in the org community. But
yeah.
I feel like San Juan del Sur kind of broke that challenge because they tried to rig it for Missy to win. And I think they kind of caught on to like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this anymore, because now they're just doing it because they know they don't want to hurt each other's feelings or whatever the case is. Having said that, with 6 people left, I feel like Jesse's still, I feel like Jesse's well protected. I feel like even if someone did decide to come after him, they would probably come after Cody first. In which case, he has two idols to save himself and Cody, or whatever the case is. And people listen to Gabler because when it was him versus Ellie, people believed him. Then Ellie got caught in a big lie, and Ellie was my winner pick, so that sucked. So it's not like Gabler doesn't have like any idea what's going on. It's just all a matter of are these people going to buy into Gabler,
Yes,
or are they going to hear what Gabler has to say and just kind of still do what they feel they need to do to win the game in the end? And it's going to be very frustrating for them, because I would love if Jesse won. It's going to be very frustrating for them, to sit there and get Jesse to the end. It's like, well, yeah, that's very clear. It's very clearly who was, for a while I thought it was Carla, but it still could be.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on something I want to explore a little bit here. We like to do it on the podcast. It's not necessarily reviewing the episode. It's kind of looking into the future. But, if Jesse did win this season, you said you would be high on that. I would be high on that as well. I think it would be pretty satisfying to see Jesse win in a way where he kind of dominated a season for a change, because I feel like we haven't seen that in a while. Myself and Jake spoke about the fact that I don't want to take away from Marianne's win or from Erica's win. I just like different flavor to my seasons. Like, I don't want the same winner to win season after season. I like seeing an over-the-top winner. I like seeing a behind-the-scenes strategic player playing a slower game. But I like seeing the variety of this, different gameplays of how do you get there. And I still think Erica is a lot more dangerous than what people probably think, because they just didn't really show a lot of her game. So if she was ever to come back, she could be threatening, and it'll be interesting to hear her take since you've watched that season more than once. I haven't. But, looking at this, coming back to Jesse, if Jesse wins this season, where would you rate him? Like, where would he at this stage, based on what we've seen right now? Is he a middle tier winner, bottom tier winner, or a higher, sort of touching towards the higher tier winners at this stage? Because he's been pretty dominating throughout the season.
I would say that if Jesse wins this season at the on the trajectory that he's on now, it would be the most dominant first time win since either Wendell, if people say that Wendell was a dominant win, and if not Wendell, then Tony. I feel like that would be the most recent dominant winner on an all newbie season. So I would put him up there with
Wendell's above him. Wendell's above him still in my mind. Like, I just want to say, if some people say Wendell didn't have a dominant, what season did you guys watch? He was dominant.
I agree with you, but you gotta but I would put him with Wendell and Tony as far as first time, all newbie cast going out there and just basically running the table. There's never really been a moment this season where it's like, oh, Jesse could.
He's in trouble.
Yeah, Jesse's never, and I can't say the same thing for Gabler, because Gabler
only Dwight, like right in the beginning when he went against him, Dwight was like, I don't know if I should trust him that much. But I mean, that was it. That was literally it. It was a blip on the radar.
And he gave him the idol.
Exactly. So what gameplay?
At least at some point, yeah.
Well, what's impressive to me, and why I bring this up, is because when they go back from immunity to the camp, there's a lot of talking happening between different people, and they're like, everybody's got their own plan. Carla suddenly is willing to sacrifice Cassidy, which is crazy to me this deep in the game, but she's legitimately fearful that Cassidy is going to get one over her. And how many times can Carla still play the idol? Is it top 6 or top 5? I think it's top 6. So literally there's the next episode she has to play it.
I think everyone has to play theirs this episode, yeah.
Yeah, so what's the point of trying to get Cassidy out so close to the end when literally you can only hold on to that advantage for one more round? And after that, it doesn't even matter anymore because Cassidy can't come and blindside you. But she's willing to vote out Cassidy. Gable hears of it. He wants to do it. He's also pushing for it. Cody wants to push for it. Everybody, it seems, wants Cassidy out. And then who's the one person who turns the vote around? It's Jesse. And people are listening to Jesse because he's like, well, this is fearful, or he's got fear towards this, because if Carla is happy to vote out Cassidy, what plan does she have cooking with Sammy potentially that could upset the apple cart going into the end, and Sammy is a threat and fire. So he actually gets his way. That was impressive to see, Jake. Seeing Jesse, I mean, I shouldn't be shocked because he's been doing it the whole season. But again, he's getting his way here, and he's doing it in a way where he's listening to people, he's hearing them out, he's not talking over them, and then he sort of injects his own idea, and people all go with him. It was, what does this guy have? He's got the mist.
He does. He's just really. It's quite simple. He's just a really good player. I mean,
Yeah.
When he's talking to Owen and talking about like voting out Sammy, and I just love when he's like, yeah, I don't know why you've been out of the loop. That sucks, you know. Like I hope
wasn't because of me.
Yeah, it's like, who would have done that to you? Oh my gosh. It's like, bro, like you've been part of that this whole time. Like, and Owen totally fell for it. He's like, oh yeah, Jesse, like he's got my back. Like he wants me in on the vote. So that was great. And he just, you know, I had a bit of concern with him and Cody because it seemed kind of the opposite, where a couple times Cody was like, I'd rather have like Dwight. And then Jesse was like, I'd rather have Noel. And then Dwight ended up going home. But now it seems the opposite. It seems that Jesse's now getting his way over Cody, which is good. And it makes more sense because Jesse just seems like a better player than Cody.
I think purely what Jesse did earlier in the season was he was like, okay, Cody, I'll give you this one because I know down the line there's going to be more important decisions to be made. And then I can say, listen, I listened to you on this one. You give me this one. You know, like I feel like Jesse's that level of player. He's thinking a couple of steps ahead, but very impressed by Jesse. The other person in this duo is Cody, Coach Drew. How do you feel about Cody's game going into the end game here? Because there's also a large contingent of people online that believes Jesse is Omar of this season and he's going to get taken out before the end and Cody's going to win this season. How would you feel on a Cody win? Where would that sit for you as a whole?
Cody, I feel like Cody's done enough things that I wouldn't. The only person on the season that I would be like, is Gabler if he were to win. And I would still give him his props because he won Survivor, which none of us have. But I
come on, Coach. Like Gabler's played a better game than Owen, though. You gotta admit, like Owen has been on the outs the whole game. And this is coming. You can ask Jake. This is coming from a very big Owen fan. Like, I mean, I picked Owen first in my draft this season, and I've been hoping and holding on to an Owen win. I'm like, come on, Owen, but I've got to admit it. Like Gabler's played a better game than Owen at this point.
I think that Gabler played a really good game at the faux merge. Ever since into that one immunity that he has, but like it's not like he's being shown to be doing much. But
he's in the votes, Coach. Like this is my thing. Like he's in the votes. People are trusting him and they're coming to him where Owen just can't. I mean, like you said, what is he? He's Charlie Brown. He's constantly chasing, but he's not getting.
That's a great underdog story if he gets to the end and you're next to Gabler and Cassidy.
So what you're saying is you would prefer for Owen to win over Gabler, but you're not necessarily saying that Owen has played a better game than Gabler.
No, I don't think that. No, yeah, I don't think that Gabler has a chance at winning because I can't see him sitting next to any other two people and beating them, and I can see Owen, Cassidy, Carla all being able to do that against the two right people. But back to Cody, you know, I feel like if Cody is sitting next to the two right people, which is basically just not Jesse, I think that he has a pretty good chance at pulling it off. I think that his hardest final three probably involve Carla. But I feel like Jesse has that type of personality. He's got charisma. I think that even if people did go in there trying to like bring him down a few pegs, I think that he would do it, but still keep, you know, his personality about him. I don't think he's going to, you know, just go straight down like this, but I also don't think he's going to go after it and try to attack them back. I think he'll keep his personality and just answer the questions. If you like him, cool. If you don't, cool. So if Cody wins, he can be like Tommy or, you know,
Yeah.
Chris Underwood. I'm just playing.
First, want to acknowledge them and say, hey, y'all, nice to meet you, Drew. So Coach Drew is from the Survivor Buffs channel on YouTube. He has a podcast on there called Survivor Hot Takes that he normally does. So if you like Drew and you like what he's saying on here, you resonate with that, go check out the content on Survivor Buffs as well for Coach Drew as well. Then he also says here, Cody definitely fizzled out. Honestly, he's been quiet for him to be a winner. I think Cody still has enough positives around him, and we haven't seen much negativity. And just by proxy of being close to Jesse, if Jesse gets taken out, I think he gets the credit. And they're like, well, we need to give it to that duo because they were playing the game probably the best up until that point. So I still think based on that, at this point, if I had to guess, I'd say he's the second most likely person to win after Jesse. And we'll talk about the third person, who's Carla, very soon. She's definitely still somewhat in the running, but I think since the merge has gone pretty quiet as well. The sad thing for me with Cody, Coach, is that when the season started, I was legitimately looking at Cody and I was like, this guy is a massive character. Like, he could be the next, Philip Shepard in a good way, or like the next coach, or the next, like one of these bigger than life characters. And then, like Zuduman said, he's just fizzled out. It's a little bit perplexed. Like, I don't understand. He started so well. He was this big character, and now he's almost not there. He's just he could be any survivor.
Yeah.
He's not memorable anymore.
No, and I started off not liking Cody because he was that type of character that I don't usually root for in these games. And now he's, now I care about him because he's still there, but I'm not in any rush to get a Cody return after this. And that's, that's with 2 episodes left. He could go balls to the wall the next 2 weeks and be the craziest person that's ever existed. And then it's like, I still don't like you, but at least it's a character now.
Like, if you have to choose between Cody and Roxroy, you're going to choose Roxroy every time because Roxroy is awesome. Like, you're not going to go back to Cody.
And Roxroy, but
Roxroy and Gable on the same tribe, Coach. I mean, that's TV.
You know what? A match made in heaven. Cody is just another guy now, but I do feel like fizzled out only in the character aspect. I feel as far as gameplay is concerned, I feel like Cody has still, done relatively well. So yeah, and like Jay said, he's a salesman. Talkers talk. As a talker, I absolutely understand. So
yeah. Zudamania says, I feel Carla can get to the end and win. Her and Jesse have winner type edits. Owen has an underdog edit, then everyone else is just there. And yeah, let's talk about Carla a little bit. Jake, how are you feeling about Carla coming into the end game here now? She has potentially turned on Cassidy here, and I think not pulling the trigger is going to come back to bite her in the next episode, because I feel like this has given Jesse some ammunition to continue to, and we even see that on the next On Survivor episode. There's probably going to be some divide, and it looks like Jesse's trying to also do that with Owen and Gabler. So, I mean, there's some high-tier gameplay happening here at the end game.
Yeah, I feel like the gap is widening quite a bit for Jesse and Cody and then everyone else. I do agree that Carla's probably that number 3. Maybe Cassidy's also in that convo. But yeah, Carla has kind of been on a decline for a while. Although weirdly enough, I still think she has a better chance than Gabler, who I was really high on Gabler last week. Like, I just felt like his edit was starting to get a lot more like.
He needed to pull against Jesse and Cody this episode. If he went against Jesse and Cody and he could get the numbers like Coach said, but it's about getting the numbers, and then I think that could have been his Marianne taking out Omar moment where people are like, wow, Gabler did that. But yeah, I'm worried for him as well.
And I was, you also got to think about who is he going to sit next to. Like, Gabler, I thought he was going to bring Owen and Sammy, and everyone was going to say, oh, Sammy, he's just, flip-flopper. Like, he just, like just kind of seeing wishy-washy, and obviously Owen just, out of the loop the whole time. And then Gabler, like, I guess it's Gabler, that's how I envisioned it going. But at this point, I'm just like, I don't think he could be Carla. I don't even think he could be Cassidy. Carla, I think, could beat Owen and Gabler. I think she could even beat maybe Cassidy. So she's got a way better chance than most people in the game, but obviously still got to take care
one
of the
thing.
guy with 2 idols.
One thing that keeps getting shown by the editors, right? And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people online have been upset about this season, because so many women has gone and have left in quick succession, right? And the editors keep showing the conversations with Carla where women are telling Carla, we need 2 women at the end. We need the women to go deep. And every time Carla does not follow through with that, and Carla potentially is again not going to follow through with that when she votes out Cassidy, I feel like Carla gets to the end and she gets eviscerated by the likes of Cassidy, Janine, Noelle. I can very easily see her get not many votes, if any votes, coach, at the end. I feel like that's his story.
It's going to be the Mike Turner thing from last year, where towards the end of that game, I kept saying, I hope Mike doesn't, because at that point I was rooting for Marianne, but I was like, I hope Mike doesn't go into Final Tribal and try to continue to portray himself as loyal and all of this, because he hasn't been. And one of my favorite moments from that Final Tribal is when everyone's coming after him and he has like this coming to God moment where he realizes, oh my goodness, I haven't been as loyal as I thought I had been. And I feel, and I really liked Mike, so like I really liked that moment for him. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen with Carla, like you just mentioned, where, you know, Carla keeps saying these things and then doesn't do them. People are, hey, you do realize how that makes us feel as, you know, as women or whatever it is. It's similar to Shan going after, who was it, in Sean in 41, where it's like, hey, it feels like you were trying to do this. It sucks that you know that they're going to be they potentially might be put in that situation, but also stop agreeing to go through with these things.
But this is what makes Survivor so great, right? Because I've said this many a times, because it's easy for us, the armchair critics here, to sit on the side and say, oh man, if I go out there, I would never vote against another South African on Survivor International, because I'm going to stay with my people, or I'm going to make sure that, you know, like if I'm a woman going out there, woman is going to win the game. But then you get out there, like Deshaun. I feel for Deshaun. Like I still feel for him right now. He legitimately thought his best plan was not to stay with that alliance, because that would get him to the end and he could potentially win. So you have this conflicting moment. This is Survivor. You know what you know, morally should do, but then morals doesn't always win you the game. And that's the beauty of it. And I think that I feel for Carla, but like you said, it's the problem that she is leading people on still and giving them hope when there is no hope. And it's such a balance and a tricky situation to get that right, to vote people out and not offend them to the point where they're like, well, you gave me false hope, or you were, you know, saying you had my back throughout the whole game, and then I get to the end. And I've spoken to Mike as well, one of the loveliest guys, you know, so I you know, I'm sad for him, but yeah, he played the game the way he played it. And Marianne played the game she played it, and she ended up winning. She managed that jury beautifully, and he did it. And we may see that again this season with Carla. I feel like not enough people are talking about this online, that Carla potentially could be held accountable, because why are we seeing it, Jake, every time? Like, you know, the editors are pointing this out for a reason.
Definitely. I think that there's been kind of a theme of you know, women trying to stick together, but it's just not working. It's gonna come up at the end somehow. I was actually rewatching the first episode, and Cassidy has a confessional where she talks about how she wants to play like a fox under the radar, and then she mentions, like, I feel like I don't want to be seen as like somebody who wasn't playing the game, because that's how women are usually perceived, is that they're followers. And so she kind of brings in like the gender into that. And so I just have a feeling that it's going to be a theme at the end some way, somehow. And I think that your prediction could be spot on about Carla.
And the counter could be said about this as well, because Cassidy has been seen as the person who's tried to keep women in the game. She's been seen as the person who tried to, you know, mend the bridges with Janine, bring her in, had that relationship going in there. It could also be that Cassidy gets to the end and the women respect the fact that she tried to get them to go deeper in the game. So it could also be that we're looking at it from Cassidy's point of view, but that it's positive. From Carla's point of view as a negative, but it could be a positive for Cassidy. Like, she could go to the end like Sandra Diaz-Twine did and say, I tried to vote Russell out so many times. I told you guys we needed to get Russell out and you didn't give me that chance. She could be saying, well, I tried to keep the likes of Noel in the game. I try to keep Janine in the game. I try to keep all these people in the game, but the votes were against me here. I don't think it's likely, but it's still a potential possibility here. Ultimately, though, we get to Tribal Council. Sammy's not fooled here. He knows he needs to play his shot in the dark. Coach, where are you sitting on shot in the dark now? I mean, we've had 3 seasons. It's fallen flat 3 seasons in a row. Can we put this one to bed now?
Yeah, it sucks because I actually like the idea of shot in the dark because it was not broken enough where it just totally changes the game. But this is now the 3rd season in a run. I think we've seen it played 4 or 5 times, maybe,
Yeah.
And with no successes. I feel like, this kind of retired. It's now it just doesn't matter. We didn't even hear about shot in the dark for most of the season. And my conspiracy theory was, they're going to try to bury it so that when someone does play it, we forget all about it because it succeeds.
That would have been cool.
I thought that's why I was more convinced that this was going to work. And when it said not safe, it's like, oh, well, okay. So yeah, we just get rid of it. I actually really do like the Cody advantage that he got this episode. I feel like that's another one, that you can kind of work with it, so yeah, shot in the dark can just kind of, it's useless. It's useless.
Well, one thing I will say about shot in the dark is that it leaves us on a positive note with Sammy. Like, I've got a lot of respect for Sammy. I think he's a great game player. I came into the season. I remember our preseason content when we were drafting. He wasn't my team. He was one of the later picks, like real late in the thing. And I said, this kid's too cocky. There's no way he's going to do well. He came across as that way when he came into the show. And then he just continued to prove me wrong week in and week after. And I was like, man, this kid's actually playing a really good game. He's way more mature than what I thought for a 19-year-old. He's fitting really in with the group. He's reading the social situations really well. He's playing that middle game. I knew it was a risky game, but Sammy kind of played the game I wish I could play if I was out there, and I feel like he can leave this game with his head held high, Jake, because like he said, he lied to so many people and blindsided them in the game. He did not want to go out that way, and shot in the dark provided him with an opportunity to show the audience that he knew it was coming.
Definitely. I think that we might be saying that Sammy's the best teenager to play.
I think he is, yeah. Like, who else? What other teenagers?
I don't even, like, Swati? Like,
no. And there was the Wall and Millennials.
Will Wall with his big moves and resume and all that stuff. Yeah, Sammy's better.
Yeah, like, I mean, I know that, like, he got caught up and he just played both sides not quite convincingly, but like he actually like got some shit done, like he had something going for him. And okay, Julia,
I would put her up there,
I guess. Yeah.
Michael Yeager was good as well. He was a pretty decent player. I remember him.
Okay, fine.
There's a few, but he's in that upper tier of teenagers. But I mean, even if you don't look at him as a teenager, because he wouldn't want to be looked at just as a teenager who played the game. I mean, he wanted to be respected as a player. I still think Sammy, out of the people that got voted out this season up until this point, is a likely chance to come back because he was good at confessionals. The camera definitely liked him. He seemed to have good strategy, and he's young. Like, I mean, the guy could come back 10 years from now and still not even be 30. You know what I mean? So I think we see him at least once more if the show lasts long enough. And from that perspective, I do like Shot in the Dark because it shows us, well, which players are completely out and they just don't see the blade coming, and who actually sees the blade coming and they're trying to prevent it or do something about it. But overall, I'm not too big on it. I'm not really thinking that it's worked out. And like Zuduman says here, he thought that they were going to rig it and saw him as the perfect archetype to be a production favorite or like an underdog potentially to go deep in the game. I don't think they were going to rig it. Like, I think Survivor, of all the reality TV out there, I think Survivor is probably one of the most honest ones, like the ones that actually let things play out the way it plays out. Right, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, they've shown it by being pissed off at some of their winners. You know, and I mean, I'm a staunch advocate that Survivor is not rigged. And my big thing is, I'm not a Ben fan, but the fact that people think that Survivor somehow rigged it for Ben when they never rigged it for Sari or Ozzy or any of their other favorites. Okay. So yeah, I agree with you. They could put situations where they put their favorites in good spots, but they can't outright rig anything because of the people that still vote. So I do see that Sammy. I do see Sammy coming back. I think Sammy comes back over Xander.
Listen, I like Xander. I wasn't following the whole online Xander is horrible because it was a counter movement because he was popular. So people were trying to discredit him because he was popular. So it was like one of those things where people are like polarized. It's like 50% likes him, so the other 50% is not going to like him, basically. And I don't think Xander is a bad kid. I think he played a decent game. I could see the flaws in his game and I understand why he didn't win. So maybe that's also why people got annoyed because a lot of Xander truthers out there believed he had to win. And just because I like Xander doesn't mean I thought he needed to win. Long story short, if I had to choose between Xander and Sammy, I would choose Sammy every day. I think Sammy's got more skill for the game. He's more of an all-rounder. So I think there's more possibilities of where the game could go. I think Xander, he comes back, he turns into the new Aussie. You know, he's always going to be a good-looking young guy with long hair if he still has it. That's decent in challenges, but game-wise, like how much game does he really have? I don't know. Even the move that he did where he swapped his idol away, he was helped in that move to do it so that his idol didn't get taken. So I don't necessarily think he's the best player that season. I'd much rather see Evie come back from that season between the two of them. Anyways, let's get into some of the points here and also our draft to see who's still left in the game. We came into this episode here with 3 people left on my team, 4 people left on Jake's team. I do lose Sammy. Sadly, he is out. So I've got 2 people left in the game. My hope is solely on Cody at this point because I don't think Owen is probably winning this thing. If he does, I'd be so happy for him. Like I said, I chose Owen as my first pick for the season. Cody, I believe, was my 3rd or 4th pick of the season. Let me just double check. 4th pick of the season overall. So I've got 2 of my top 4 left in the game. Out of the people that are left in Jake's team, he's got only 1 person left. Jesse was his first pick. Jesse is still left in the game. The rest of them were sort of more towards the middle tier, but they have been outperforming our expectations throughout this season and doing extremely well. Now, when we look at the points here, Jake, I have continued to close in on you. Like, Jake's been leading the whole season. He's been, at one point, he was about 70 points ahead of me on the draft, but you know, I've been closing that gap. The gap continues to be closed, and I'm now only 18 points behind you, Jake. So even though I've got less people, there's some heavy hitters that are getting me points. So let's look at what the points are saying. Overall, top person of the season and taking his top spot again after last week. He's been top the whole season, lost the top spot to Jesse. He's back in top spot this week at a whopping 78.5 points to Jesse's 65 points, who's in second, is Cody. Now, Cody's had 46 confessionals throughout the season. He's had 3 team challenge wins. More than that, 4 team challenge wins. He's won an individual immunity. In fact, he's actually won a second individual immunity that I didn't update. So I'm actually even a bit closer. So he's won 2 individual immunities, and I'll give you the updated score in a bit. He's made the merge, which was points. He's had a successful advantage play in this episode. And he found an additional advantage to the idol that he found this episode. So that all gave me more points this week. He's at 83.5 points at the end of this. Jesse's at 65 points. And then coming in at 3rd place at this point is our 3rd pick as well as potential winner, Carla, at 58.5 points. So overall, this is the score that we have. And I'll just maximize this a little bit for everybody that's here in the live. This is the score. We've got 319.5 points for Jake, and we've got 306.5 points now for me. So even though I've only got 2 people, you've got 4 people. It's still anybody's game at this stage in the game. And to remind people who have forgotten, we give points for confessionals, 1 point. Team challenge wins is 3 points. Individual immunities is 5 points. Making the merge is 5 points. Advantage players is 5 points. Finding an advantage is 3 points. Runner-up for the season is 25. Winning it all out is 50 points. And then we have our bonus categories for most confessionals, most individual immunity wins, most advantages found, and least votes casted against them. So that's where we're sitting at. What do you think of that, Jake? So still a close race getting into the end game here.
Yeah, I think that I'm riding on Jesse. I mean, I think I've got the number 1 as the consensus we came to. I've got the number 1. You've got the number 2.
Yeah.
And then I've got 3 through 5.
And 4. I'd say Gable is 4th at this point, in my mind. Oh, actually, no, maybe Cassidy. It's between Cassidy and Gable at 4th place.
3 through 5, and
you've got both of them.
You've got 6 who with Owen. So
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's gonna be
you-
tough.
So I think that as long as what we're predicting is accurate, I should pull it out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting to see what happens here in the end game. I think that for me to have any chance, I need Cody to win more, so he can have the most. Even if he gets second place, he needs to have the most immunity wins for the season. He needs to have the most advantages found.
Yeah.
Least votes casted against them is most likely going to be one of yours because both Mike Gabler and Jesse has not had votes against them. But it could go either way. Like, I'm excited to see how this first one plays out. I've also thought of a few things that we can amend in the scores for next season because of how this one's played out. But I've been enjoying this. What do you think, Drew, of the draft overall and sort of the teams that are left and how we're doing it differently this season?
I've been going through this. Ellie and Lindsay were my two picks at the beginning of the season. So to see that Jake had both of them, I'm with you. I'm with you, bro. After they left, I hop shipped to James. And then from there, after James left, I think I've been firmly on the Jesse train. But these are me and Emily also did a draft. And her winner pick is Cassidy. At the beginning of the season, she picked Cassidy, and she felt like Gabler and Jesse were also going to have good seasons, and she did way better than I did. Honestly, I think Jake's probably going to pull it out, Chris. But
yeah, I get it. I get it. It's going to be tough.
I like to root for the underdog, so
let's go. Let's go, team underdog. I'll take it.
I got to keep my title from last season where I picked Marianne.
Nice.
Yeah. But you see, last season, what we did differently, Drew, was just outright winner. So whoever won. So we thought we'd make it interesting. We did it for the first time on Survivor South Africa this season.
More complicated. But...
Yeah, so there's more points involved. So even if someone wins, they don't just win the whole draft, but you can get points for other things, which I really enjoy. I do want to go into the live quickly, see if there's any other really good comments that's come in. Let's have a look here. Imagine JD and Sammy on the second season. I don't know if that's fair to JD. I love JD. But I mean, let's be honest. He didn't show too much potential in that first season. I want to see JD back though. I'm fully can we get a post merge versus pre merge season so we can bring JD back, please? I want to see
Return of the Outcasts, but for US
America.
Yeah. Also here, Deanna being welcome to the live, saying Sammy has much more strategy than Xander. Agree with you, Deanna. I think we all agree with that. Zuluman, honestly, Xander didn't even have strategy. JE saying, can you guys break down potential final three combos and who likely wins in each scenario and most likely loses fire making now? Yeah, sure. I think at this stage, the most likely combination for a final three, if I had to guess based on what I'm seeing play out, is going to be Jesse, Cody, and Carla. That's my pick for the final three.
Or
I think Jesse,
Cody, and Owen.
Listen, that's the smartest one.
Jesse, Gabler, and someone else, with Jesse getting first, someone else getting second, and Gabler getting third.
Jesse gets first. Jesse gets first in any combination he's in at this point. Cody, I think, without Jesse being in that combination, gets second. That's why we said he's probably the second most likely person to win. I don't see anybody really beating Cody either. Carla, I think, with any combination that doesn't have Jesse and Cody in it, has a very good shot. Carla and Cassidy going against each other with anybody else would be interesting because as the edit said this week, Carla believes they've played a very similar game. The edit hasn't necessarily shown us that, but they believe that, and I think that's why Carla wants to cut her, because she's like, well,
I don't see them. I don't actually see them as playing a similar game, but I guess that's the perception out there.
That Carla has, not necessarily that everybody else has, but Carla's got that perception. So, because I feel like Carla thinks that that's going to split votes. I feel like Carla wins over Cassidy, personally. Who else could there be? Like Gabler, I think Gabler's got a better chance than what Drew maybe would like to believe. If he got to an end scenario, I think he's got a story. I think he's got a story, Drew.
My story is, you remember that time I won that immunity by doing this for everyone that's ever existed? Remember that?
Yeah.
Those were the good old days.
I don't think that's a good one.
Everybody on planet Earth, I did.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good one to. The camera kept kept showing us everybody on the side rolling their eyes. So I've just got a feeling that's not the one to talk about. But I do think he's got a, like, Gabler's story is the one of, I came into this game, I was 20 years older than everybody else. I found it difficult to relate to people. I had to play the game differently. Like he said from the start, there's only been one other person who's won that's been over the age of 50. So he couldn't play the game like everybody else and connect to them at that level. So he had to sort of sit in the backseat in the beginning, eat up all of the things that Ellie was serving him at that point, and he wasn't happy, and then waited for his time to pounce, and then took out his biggest threat in the game, and then continued to be a loyal number to those who wanted it, but also still, at some point, what Gabler is missing is he needs to take out the Jesse, and if he takes out Jesse and Cody, then I think he beats Carla, and that's why it's hard to do these final threes, because I feel like even if he sits next to Carla, but if he was the reason to take those guys out, I think he beats her. As well, because you need that move. I mean, Marianne has literally shown us, you take out the biggest target in the game, you can get credit for that. I mean, Marianne before that didn't do that much strategically. Like, she was just there, a number. She was, a fun character, someone that we all loved, but that was her move, and it showed that you can do that move against the best player and get the credit for it at the end. That's the new. In fact, I think that is the new meta of Survivor. In this faster paced game, that's how you want to play. You don't necessarily, people forget, because the pre-merge is so short, people forget what you did in the pre-merge. It's all about what happens after the merge.
Yeah. It's, if anyone's ever seen Moneyball or read Moneyball, a lot of the stuff does not matter. Like, the pre-merge matters because you build your relationships and it's fine. But at the end of the day, no one cares about what happens pre-merge, and really no one cares about what you do early merge. It's all a matter of, do you win in the end? You can go on these, you can vote out, you can be Omer last season and vote out everyone and be responsible for all of it. But Omer doesn't get to the end, and I think that the team, Marianne sitting there, watching, hey, I can't win like this. I can't win by voting all these people out. But what I can do is do what I'm going to do and then get rid of the person that did do all of it. And then I'm good, because who else can beat me at this point? I've already taken out the person that took out everyone else. And I agree with you. Now, if Gabler, like, if we get to 6 and Gabler gets rid of Jesse and then gets rid of Cody, or let Jesse get rid of Cody and then get rid of Jesse, hell yeah, Gabler wins. And whoever does that, hell yeah, they win. And they better 100%. Sit there and say, hey, I did this my way and it worked. So
yeah. And I think Owen is just, he's sitting on the sidelines just wanting to have a move.
That's what I'm saying. I don't see them, unless Owen like really comes out strong and is like trying to pull some mastermind move. Why would they take him out? That's why I think he's kind of a lock for the final.
Jesse and Cody's relationship is going to get tested. Like, does Jesse take Cody to the end? Does Cody take Jesse to the end? Like, very rarely you get these strong duos take each other to the end, like a Steven Fishback and a JT, or Wendell and Dom. Like, you don't see that happening very often. So I'm very interested to see if that actually happens and if they go in a different direction. But for us watching the show, it's going to be exciting to see what happens over the next couple of episodes. I think we've pretty much touched on everything that we can here for this episode, unless there's anything else, Drew, that you wanted to touch on. This is your opportunity to tell people, what are you working on? What are you doing currently, and where can people follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram, Chosen10515, or Survivor Buffs. Twitter, same thing, at The Click, KLIQ. Or Survivor Buffs on Twitter. Also, if you're going to follow me, if you ever have time, watch my recap of 42 seasons in 42 days. It was a project I did over the summer. I'm not doing it again until season 50. I'll do 50 in 50 days, but that's still a few years away. My next Survivor project, I haven't really thought about it yet, but I do want to do another long thing like I did over the summer. I lost a lot of weight doing that, so hopefully something that's less stressful on the body than watching 42 days.
Insane,
but yeah,
man. I was seeing all the content, and you were like religious with that every single day. Boom, boom. You had it next episode on, and it impressive to see, and definitely go check that out, guys. What was your biggest sort of? I know you probably don't want to spoil too much of what sort of happened, and you want people to sort of watch. What was the biggest thing you changed your mind on watching it again? Like, because I feel like every time you go back and you watch it again, you get more enlightened by the fact that you're seing things the second time around. Did you have a change of mind?
An amazing season. Vanuatu is great.
I agree.
But also, Island of the Idols has a great cast, and it sucks because the pre-merge is really good, and then this time around, you try to watch it, differently, and the merge, I just still didn't care once it happened because it's just covered by this dark cloud. But Island of the Idols has a great cast, and Vanuatu is top 10 season. Vanuatu is really good.
Yeah.
Totally.
I wish I had at the top of my head. I did a season rankings, obviously, with some of the Survivor buffs and a bunch of other YouTubers as well, not that long ago on Russell Muscle's channel of Flynn Masters, and I'm pretty sure I had Vanuatu somewhere in my top 10 as well. There, it was one of the seasons I really enjoyed. Like, I think it was like 8 or 9 for something like that from memory for me personally.
So good.
And I'm so glad that you're on that now as well, because I feel like it doesn't get the love it deserves, and it's such a crazy outcome to a season as well, with such a crazy good cast, Anyway, so I guess moral of the story, go watch Vanuatu. What's happening over here on the Nullified Take? Well, in the next week, we're going to be doing some more exit interviews with the Challenge Australia as we can. I'm sort of working with Channel 10 on that. We're also going to be covering the next 2 episodes for the Challenge Australia, and also we'll be covering the finale for both the Amazing Race and also for Survivor. So, actually, Survivor's next week. Survivor's a week after the Amazing Race, so it's 2 episodes still before the finale, right? Yeah. So I might have another special guest on next weekend. Jake may not be available unless anything has changed on his end for the next recap. We'll talk about that afterwards. And I might have another special guest joining me as we talk about the next episode. Hopefully it's an exciting one. But for now, everybody in the live, thank you so much for being here today. Consider subscribing to the channel. It does help with the growth of this channel. Consider liking the video. I hope we deserve that subscription by talking about Survivor and all the shenanigans around it today. And like always, we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.